Hello and welcome to Birth Voice, a series of conversations giving voice to the hidden dimensions of birth and with that of a woman. No matter where you are in your journey, this is a space to remember the fullness of the woman that lives under your skin, to be inspired to unapologetically embody and celebrate your innate ability to conceive, birth and nurture not just children but magic on this planet. Here, we talk about birth, sexuality, pleasure, and shine light on the wise, wild, and innocently sensuous nature of being a woman. Birth Voice is brought to you by womenawakenings.com. This is the first season of Birth Voice, which is all about empowering birth stories and the journey of each woman birthing herself through her experience. So if we try to control an instinctual process such as birth, we are actually interfering with it. And one of the most fundamental elements for birth to happen is a woman's journey of surrender. So today I have with me my friend Alexa, who describes her birth experience as the most amazing day of her life. She's a mother, a birth doula, and a photographer based in Hawke's Bay, New Zealand. And in this episode, we are discussing the ingredients that help her build trust in her body and the birthing process. She also shares with us her tips to enter and maintain the trance of labor, as she refers to it, allowing her body to do its job. And finally, we discuss her way of welcoming intensity and creating environments for babies to enter this world in peace.
Hello, Alexa.
Hello.
Very nice to have you here, and thank you for taking the time to be here with us today. I will never forget when one day I was looking through social media and I saw this amazing picture of you being pregnant in nature. At the time, I had no idea you were pregnant, and I was like, "Oh my God." And from that moment, I just knew, just from that picture, that you're going to have an amazing birth experience.
There's something so amazing about that, is that when I had that picture taken, I presume it's the one you mean when I'm squatting?
I just remember that you were in nature in a very green place with your with your big belly that seemed like you're carrying the whole universe is in there, and that you were in one with nature. I don't remember the exact position, but that was the feeling that it brought me and made me curious to hear more about your birth story.
Well, it's kind of amazing because that photo shoot actually, it is what happened in a way. I did give birth outside under a tree in nature in a beautiful hot tub and over here in New Zealand, outside under the stars. It was really beautiful.
Wow. So let's start by maybe introducing yourself and tell us how you found out you're pregnant and all the way leading to your birth experience.
Cool. So I dreamed of having a baby for a long, long time, and I was patiently waiting for my partner to be ready. I'd been advised that was a very important thing to do, was to make sure that both of you were ready to have a baby. And so I waited and waited, just patiently, calmly, not in any hurry, but still waiting. And in the meantime, I was very passionate about birth. So I started reading all about birth. So I discovered these amazing podcasts by Margot Blackstone and Meryn Green, and they're called Taking Back Birth. And they're really about empowering women to have the births that they want and making the choices, all of the choices that they need to make around pregnancy for themselves, with power and with knowledge and with informed choice. So I came across these podcasts, and that was a big part of my research, was listening and listening and listening. So at the time we lived 1 hour out of town. So every time I hopped in the car, I'd put on a podcast and just fill my ears and my head with all of this beautiful knowledge about birth. And the amazing thing about those two women is that they are actually midwives, and they want people to have all of the knowledge about birth, so they pass it on. So with all of that information, it's easy to make informed choices. So in the discovery of these podcasts, and then reading and waiting, and one day finally my partner at the time, called Benji, he said, okay, I'm ready. And about maybe within a week, Mateo was coming. That's my baby girl. So she listened very strongly to his call of, hey, I'm ready. And she came. And she came on a lunar ovulation. So I didn't ovulate when I usually would ovulate. So it was kind of surprising that she came as well. She came, I ovulated on the moon that I was born under. And that's how I made her as well. So she didn't come just when you would predict that she would come on my 13th or 14th day of the cycle. But she came on day 6, I think, which was another part of the story, that she listened to him, and then she came in a chance, that just a random chance too. So that was a really beautiful part of her coming.
It's so beautiful that I've always felt that souls that want to come through, they're perhaps bringing people together so that they can come through. And it's so beautiful to put this in words and see it happening, like your story.
And there's another little piece to that story, which is that during that time, it was really not a good time in the relationship between me and Benji. And we had kind of decided to separate. And then a few days later, discovered that she was coming. And that was just really powerful for me as well, because she had absolutely taken her last chance to be born of Benji and I. Yeah.
Wow.
She knew, yeah. She was, I was like, hang on a minute, this is it, I need to come. I've got to come right now. So she came, yeah. It was kind of crazy. So we, I did find, so in New Zealand, we've got home birth midwives who support birthing at home. And again, because of my passion with birth, I just wanted to know all about birth. And so I did find a midwife who I felt was quite aligned with what I believe. And I saw her regularly throughout the pregnancy. So
at that point, you've already knew, because of all the reading you did and all the, let's say, inner preparation about being a mother, even before you were pregnant, you already knew you wanted to have a home birth. No doubt.
No doubt in my mind. That was really clear to me. My mum, except for me, I'm one of 4 girls. I'm the eldest. My mum birthed me at a birthing centre with the idea that it's the first one, so it should be the safest. But for me, when I just kept reading about birth, I discovered that birthing at home was totally the safest option for me. I wanted to be around in my home space. I wanted to have my own food around. I wanted to have my cozy environment. I didn't want strangers coming into the room. I didn't want to have to go in the car. 1 day after or 2 days after giving birth, I couldn't bear that idea. I didn't want to be monitored. I didn't want to be in bright lights. All of those things I had researched and discovered that people birth best in dark, cozy, comfortable, homely spaces where they feel at home and ultimately you need to birth where you feel the safest. And if that's in a hospital, then birth in a hospital. But if you feel the safest at home, then birth at home. It makes sense to birth in the environment that matches your needs, and home birth has a lot of safe options. for it and a lot less intervention.
It's very important what you say, to choose an environment that each woman feels safe for herself. And for some women, this may be a hospital. So it's great to really listen to this and make a choice that is important that is the right choice for each individual woman.
For each person. And I'm not someone, I mean, I work with women now as a doula, and I'm never telling someone, you need to birth here, home birth is the only way, or whatever. I really, truly believe that each woman knows the answer to that deep inside herself. And if she's able to step away from the stories of fear or the stories of things going wrong that very often happen in a hospital, she can work on herself and work on those fears and work on her own personal story and come into alignment with where she truly should birth based on her feelings and her needs and her wishes and her intuition too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so at one point, it was actually really near when I had those photos taken. I had a dream about my birth. And it was kind of like an afternoon nap sort of dream where I wasn't quite sure if I was awake or if I was dreaming. But in that dream, I was giving birth outside, and I was under a tree, and I was in this. So I've got these beautiful pregnancy pictures all outside, the ones that you've seen, and one of them is me in a squatting position. And it looks like I'm going to just birth my baby right there in the forest. And it's so bizarre because that photo came, that idea for it came, and I just was in that position at that moment because that's what felt like I was right to do. And I ended up birthing like that outside under a tree in nature and in that position. Yeah, it was really bizarre. It was really beautiful.
So you had the dream, and after you had a photo shoot, and that happened in the photo shoot, and then you gave birth in that position.
And because I dreamed that, I was thinking, like, I find that in pregnancy I'm so aware, I'm so in touch with my intuition and so in touch with like almost another world. I feel like I'm really open, really, really, really open to everything that happens. And when I was when that dream came, I was like, I think that's come because that's what I'm supposed to do. That's how I'm supposed to birth. So I kind of set about creating the environment in which to birth like that. So I bought a secondhand pool, a round pool, and we set it up outside and put like a copper pipe hot water sort of system. Benji organised it. We filled it with rainwater, and then it would be heated by a fire. So it did take a long time to fill up. So we did a few practice runs, and that was actually nice because I could just relax in the pool. But a few practice runs because it did take a good 7 hours or something to heat up. So we kind of knew that as soon as I went into labour that we should heat it straight away. So we did that actually. I went into labour when I was around 40 weeks, and it was about 1:30 in the morning. I woke up.
Can I interrupt you for a second, just to go back to this point that you've mentioned?
Yeah.
That you, during pregnancy, you felt that you were that you were more open than usual to intuition and to... I've always felt that when we're pregnant, there is another being growing in the body. So there has to be a way that being is communicating with the mother to not only the way that human being is going to be born, but also perhaps ways that the mother thinks she needs to see things in herself, overcome fears, Do you have any experience with that? Because it seems like you've been quite aware of this intuition growing.
Yes, definitely. And it kind of showed up to me in ways like I would hear things, or certain songs would come to me, or certain words would come, or in some moments I just knew I had to do that. And I knew if I didn't do that, then something else would happen. Or it was just this bizarre sense of just knowing what to do, just feeling really intuitively guided. And before I was pregnant, I was like, yeah, but what does that mean to act by your intuition? Or what is that? Or I'm very sort of rational, practical brain type person. But when I went in pregnancy, that whole other side of me really opened up. That allowed me really to see, to connect with that. And I've kept that with me. I'm still really, really connected with my intuition and can be really led by it. But it did take pregnancy to kind of discover that as my superpower and make sure that I actually acted on it. It was really powerful.
Yes, that acting part, because I feel like we all have access to intuition at any time, but when rationality comes in and blocks that soft voice. So for you, it sounds like you've taken the pregnancy to really say, this is as real as something I see with my eyes, and I can measure, and I can just by knowing. Wow.
Exactly that. Exactly. Well put. Yeah.
So you started labor around 40 weeks, and it was 1 a.m. You said you started when you went on labor.
Yeah. So I woke up and it was. Hang on, let me go back one day, because the day before that, I knew it would be tomorrow. I had this like strong feeling. It was very funny because all the days before that, I was like, is it going to be today? Is it going to be today? And then the day before, I was like, it's going to be tomorrow. And I'd kind of told my baby, oh, well, here's another part of the story too. So when I had that, because I did all of that research about birth, I started to come to the feeling that I did not want to be monitored or disturbed when I was in labour. So my midwife in New Zealand is paid by the government. So New Zealand New Zealanders have free midwifery care. It's free for us, but what's happening is the government is paying the midwife. So what that means for the midwife is that they have to follow a certain set of policies. So
protocols.
Yeah, exactly. So one of those is that the baby's heart rate should be monitored every 30 minutes. I've been told later on since then that you don't actually, I think that it's up to the individual how intensely you follow these. I'm not sure. But my midwife felt like she needed to monitor my baby every half an hour to check her heartbeat. Because I'd chosen to have no scans, nothing electronic, and no ultrasound or anything like that, the idea of her, so she would have had to check my baby's heartbeat with a pinard. So it's like a little, do you know what
the old-fashioned one that you put on the belly.
Exactly. So you hold it right up. So I was imagining me in labour, big, huge, pregnant belly, doing my thing, enjoying my mission, and then, hang on, I need to check the baby's heartbeat. Me come into my rational brain, get out, haul my belly out of the pool, get it a check, and then go back to what I was doing. And I just couldn't bear the idea of getting interrupted. I'd read about birth. I heard it's so good to be undisturbed. I've read that you just need to be in your trance of labour, not thinking about numbers, not thinking about rational things like time or any numbers. And I didn't want to think about those things. So I wanted to be in the trance of labour. And I shared this with Benji, and I just said to him after a while, I was like, I don't want somebody to be there. I was quite convinced when I had that dream, and a range of other things, the research I'd done and everything like that, made me convinced that actually I wanted to birth at home with no medical professional, because I did not want to be interrupted. And so Benji wasn't quite as comfortable with the idea of that as me, but we came to the agreement that if in the moment everything felt good and felt right and felt like it was meant to be like that, then we simply wouldn't call our midwife unless we needed her. And so I was getting to the point of that, because so the timing of Mateo is really important too, because around 40 weeks, so for 2 weeks leading up into 40 weeks, I had a good friend of mine coming to stay, and we thought, oh, she's going to be at the labour, she'll be at the birth. And then she had to go. And there was this 2-day window, and then another good friend was going to come, and she was going to be at the birth. So there was these 2 beautiful soul sisters are all around my birthing time, caring for me and being with me. And then this 2-day gap in the middle of nobody there. And I always said to my baby, you choose your timing. I totally trust you will come when you want to come.
Wow.
And she chose to come in that 2-day gap where I had nobody there.
Wow.
And so that
sounds
was another
like
real, yeah.
It sounds like your ability to trust, like it was so impeccable, and also your connection with your baby, that you basically said, I put this on autopilot, gonna happen, and you surrender deeply.
Totally. Yeah. And that dear friend of mine, she called me and she said, shall I come? Like, you're in labour, shall I come? And I just said, I'm sorry, but actually no. The baby's chosen now to come. And that was the time the baby knew that there was nobody else. And that was another sign for me that I was meant to do that just alone, just me. And so it ended up being Benji, me, and a photographer, because I'm such a birth nerd. I wanted to see every moment of the birth as well. I do have it on video too, which is really, really beautiful. So it was the same photographer who took those nature pictures. She came, and yeah, it was amazing. So let me go back to the labour beginning. So about 1:30 in the morning, I kind of woke in with just a little bit of cramping, enough to notice, enough that I woke up, and a little bit of wet between my legs. And I thought, oh, this is it. But I also thought, hang on, I know first-time labours and I know first-time mamas, and first-time labours can be very, very long. And first-time labours don't necessarily start and off go the contractions regularly. Sometimes they start and stop and start and stop. Sometimes the body needs a lot of practice. Sometimes the body's just like warming up, getting ready. It can do that for some weeks before the birth. So when it started, I thought, I'm just going to lie and see what happens, because maybe it keeps going, maybe it doesn't. And I wanted to keep resting, because that's a really important thing to do, is stay resting in that early phase, which is also really hard. I always tell my mamas, my doula mamas, like, when it starts, just rest. But oh no, in practicality, when it starts, it's like, I'm gonna have my baby.
Excitement kicks in.
Exciting.
One of the hardest things for women to do has to be like an extra seatbelt on. Like, stay here.
Exactly. So I lay in bed for a while, but they did keep coming, and they were quite rhythmic. So I thought, okay, I'm going to tell Benji. I told him what was happening, and so we got up. We lived in a yurt at the time. We got up, we cleaned the yurt, we made a big pot of food for the day, because we knew we might be busy doing something else, and it's also really important to eat during labour. To remember to eat, so you've got your body's got a lot of energy and sustenance to be able to have the power to physically push your baby out. And we just lay in the yurt and kind of cuddled by the fire, and just let the sensations be felt in my body, and just enjoyed and kind of rested in between.
So beautiful that you're saying enjoyed. This is a word that I really feel is so important to reintroduce in birth. It's just so enjoying.
I loved it. Giving birth was the best day of my life. I loved it. It was like it was the most amazing thing I've ever experienced. Every moment of it was just incredible, to feel my body moving and feel those sensations, and know that these sensations were bringing my baby to me was just, it was incredible. It was so incredible. So the morning came, and we lived on a piece of land. So we went walking around and told our friends on the land what was happening, and it was really cute because it was springtime in New Zealand, and there was little lambs, baby chickens, cows, all of the baby animals were around. And I was like, this is when I'm supposed to give birth. It's just the perfect time because everyone else is doing it now, so I might as well join. So we told all our friends that was what was happening, and then went back to the yurt. We'd started, the birth pool was filling up. It was heating. This was like 9 a.m. And just spent the day going slowly deeper and deeper and deeper into labour. I had some candles around sent from different friends, so I lit them and knew that all of those friends were with me. I had that just on an altar beside me. If you know a yurt, yes you do. From the crown of the yurt, we hung a long braided red rope so I could hang off it and swing off it. And I spent a lot of the day with loud, beautiful music, just dancing and rolling and moving my hips and swinging from this red rope. And it just felt so instinctive to move, and so instinctive to dance, and so instinctive to roll my hips as well. That's just what it felt like my body needed. And my baby needed. That was the energy that was coming. It was really.
I want to ask you something. Yeah, like, because I can see sometimes women in labor, they start off really being in their mind, and then as the labor progresses, there is this almost sweeps away anything mental if their conditions are there. So do you remember that? Do you remember this happening to you, and how was the experience, like transitioning from, brain waves that can speak normally into that total trance?
Yeah, I remember like I'd been in contact with some friends on the phone, and then suddenly I couldn't message. It was almost like my body wasn't letting me think. I was fully, fully, fully slipping into just my body. But the really beautiful part of that too was that though I wasn't thinking with my rational brain, my subconscious was bringing through all of these tiny little pieces of knowledge that I needed to know at each moment, like when to move position, when I should walk, when I should do this or do that. Like it was bringing the knowledge, the research knowledge, the rational knowledge that I've got into that moment, but it was also bringing through all of the affirmations that I'd been practicing or that had been told by friends. So although I wasn't thinking, these subconscious thoughts were just sort of popping through and really guiding me.
That was a different voice, that your instinctual voice of where to move your body or how the body wanted to move. So it's a combination of like information coming through your body, but also through your cognitive, let's say, aspect.
Yes, though I wasn't, it was bizarre. It wasn't like I was trying to think of those things. I wasn't going, now what was that information? It was like, oh, that information just dove in, or those words just came in. It wasn't me trying to remember or think or bring anything to my attention. It was like purely, it was very, my subconscious, I guess. And I'd chosen not to do anything, like I didn't want to do anything that would make my mind think of numbers. So I didn't want to have any measuring or any timekeeping or any clocks around or anything like that. I just wanted to be in the moment.
Present.
Without thinking, without it. Like I didn't want to switch my rational brain on. I wanted to be in my trance of labor, doing what I was supposed to do, what my body's capable of doing. At some point it felt right to go and hop into the pool. I'd been sort of saving the pool for when it got really intense, like when it was feeling quite strong, and that's when I thought I'm going to go in now, because that was about 5 o'clock in the night and it got just intense. It was stronger and longer, and I thought I would like to be in the pool now. So I went and hopped in, though I can't remember walking to get there. But I remember being in there. You know how before you said your word was enjoy? A really powerful word for me when I was in labour was yes. And so when a contraction or a surge was coming, I was actually singing or saying, yes, 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 and really like welcoming it to come. And you can hear me on the video and I'm just saying yes, and then I started to sing about yes and like really welcome it. And I think that kind of energy, that yes energy, really is a different one. It's not like, no, I don't want this. No, this is out of my control. But yes, this is what my body's doing. Yes, this is what it's supposed to be doing. Yes, I welcome it and I just be with it and really feel it. So that was
such a beautiful, powerful, simple thing. But I guess it makes a lot of difference. Just like in the welcoming instead of pushing away. Wow.
It was funny too. So a couple of times, so Talitha, that was my photographer, she arrived near that time, about dark. And a couple of times she sort of asked me, shall we call the midwife? And I kept saying no. And then she read out a message from the midwife to me, and the midwife is actually at another birth. She's at hospital. I didn't know that consciously, but I felt it. And she read this message from the midwife, and it said, so what I heard was, if you need me, call me. And what she wrote, I read back on the messages, she wrote, when you need me, call me. I heard if, and I thought to myself, oh, she knows I can do this too. She also got so she had my back, whether she didn't know it. But that beautiful switch of words made me think, oh yeah, she's trusting me to do this too. It's really cool. It's like a series of beautiful alignments that allowed that to happen. Anyway, so I just kept saying no to that question because it felt so good and it felt so right, and nothing about it felt wrong. Everything about it felt like this is what's meant to happen. I was experiencing everything that I'd researched and more, and I was just so in it, so in that beautiful flow of labor. It was amazing. at some point my body started to push. So you probably know this well, but maybe someone listening doesn't. It's called the fetal ejection reflex. So on the movies, when someone's giving birth and it's that big dramatic scene, often in the movies everyone's yelling, push, push. But
screaming.
The woman pushes on command. But in reality, often, not always, often, and if you've been left to birth in a birthing environment that is undisturbed in the right conditions, you will experience this called fetal ejection reflex. So what it is your body is pushing the baby out. It's not your mind. It's not like me going, push. It's purely and totally your body doing it. And for me, that moment was totally out of control. Every other moment I'd been like, yes, I'm welcoming it. I'm saying my affirmations. I'm really calm. When my body was pushing, I had to totally surrender because it was just doing it. There was no, it's like vomiting, really. I had no control over it. It just did it. It was incredible.
Also, that just for people who are listening, just to connect, that reflex is the same as breast milk ejecting itself, like, and also semen being ejected out of the penis. So it's the same thing. No control.
It's amazing. It was quite incredible to experience that. And by that time was quite funny too, because I was really tired. That was about, I don't know, something like 10:30 at night. So I'd been in labour for about 20 hours, which didn't, by the way, I don't believe that that's a long labour. In my opinion, it is. You need to prepare, like when you're preparing for labour, prepare for a really, really, really long one. Prepare for 40 hours, have all the food, all the drink, all the rest. And then if it's shorter, fantastic, but at least you were prepared. But for me, it was 22 hours in total. For me, that felt like a good amount of time for my body to prepare and for my body to get ready and give birth. It didn't feel, I don't determine that as long, whereas somebody else listening might think, but I had 8 hours and that felt long. And that's true. It could be long too, but I think it's also a matter of perspective.
And also here, when we are present and we're not counting time, then kind of like time stops, and there is no sense of time in the way it's perceived when we're measuring. I've got another hour. So that's an important part of labor, and that's what actually allows labor to happen.
And not being told, you've been pushing for this long, or your water's broke at this time, or like any kind of control against time, which again makes you go into your rational brain and out of the trance of labor. Yeah.
But it's so interesting because you've mentioned that before about the protocols that we as humans created to put birth into these lines, which actually it's not really possible because birth is so fluid and not one body is the same as the other body. And even if we've done hundreds of research to measure that time and take a reference time that things are supposed to be, it just can't happen.
Yeah, exactly. And I think those policies can be a beautiful guide of keeping people safe as a broad and general sort of idea, but not if we rigidly follow them and try to apply that same set of ideals to each woman, because labor and birth, you're right, it's so fluid and it's so different for each person. It can't be defined by a graph or a line or a statistic. It's too big and too diverse and too beautiful for that. Yeah. So I was in the pushing phase. But by that time I was pretty tired. And it was quite funny because I was falling asleep in the pool. So I'd kind of like doze off, and then Benji would prop me up a bit, and then I'd go off again and I'd be snoring or like just
proper falling asleep
in the middle of labor. It's amazing. So in between the pushing, the body doing the fetal ejection reflex, that comes like contractions too. It's not constant. It's pulses. Yeah, exactly. So in between those, I was snoozing, and apparently that's quite common in transition phase. Is that a woman will she just needs a break, so she'll have time out or a rest, or her body sort of stops for a little while and just calms down to be ready to push the baby out. But mine was happening in between pushing the baby out. But it's okay. So I started to feel that. Felt totally out of control, really intense. I was really grunting, like really no control. I was blowing bubbles a lot in the water. I was, that part felt really intense. When the rest of my labor, I'd been able to kind of focus and use meditation practice. When the pushing part came, it felt out of control. And that was my biggest part to surrender. I had to really surrender and trust my body and know this is what it's meant to be doing, and just let it do it. But it was so hard because I could not control it. I could not do anything. I just had to let it do, totally let it do. So that was my biggest lesson, probably, was just the full surrender of being totally out of control of my own body.
And this is one of the things that I find that as women and as humans, we've lost connection to this ability, or this, ability to connect to that wild surrender, which birth for me equals wild surrender. So it's almost like a teacher and a reminder of how to do that.
Yeah, definitely. After a while, I had that feeling of, hang on, I can't do this anymore. It was very brief, but it rushed over me. And then my subconscious again kicked in. So all my researchers tell me that when you get to the moment that says, I can't do it, it means your baby's coming.
Wow.
So I was like, I can't do it. Hang on a minute. My baby's coming. So, thank you all of the hours of research I did. And then I reached down between my legs and I could feel her head right there. I could feel this little squishy, mushy patch of hair. And not long after that, I could feel the ring of fire. And that was intense. So again, when I was so like loving and peaceful for my labor, when her head started to come, then I was saying, fuck, that hurts. It's not in my usual nature to swear, but feeling her head really felt like burning. And
that called the ring of fire.
So her head came out, and I could feel, it was amazing. I could just reach down and feel this little head, and I could feel these two tiny ears on the side. And I kind of whispered that he's got two little ears. I could feel those there. And then I actually kept feeling, and I wanted to check her neck and see if she had the cord around it. And she did. And I thought, I'm just going to try and unhook it with my finger. And I couldn't. And then I felt like, okay, I want to have her out now. So at that moment, I did consciously push, like my brain telling my body, push now, because I felt like I wanted to have her out then. I could have waited longer, but my feeling really was, yep, I want to have her out. So I did push her out. She came out into the water, into my hands, and she looked up at me from under the water and opened her eyes, and she was looking at me up under the water. Oh my God, it was like the most amazing moment to see this face of this person that you've grown just looking wide-eyed up out of the water. It was bizarre. That moment's just burned in my memory forever. And then I really slowly brought her up because I just wanted to take time, and I'd unwrapped the cord under the water, and then I just lifted her out and put her right on my chest, and it was just perfect. There were no, I've seen many birth videos, and there's always all these hands in there, hands with gloves, hands with monitors, hands with torches, like all of these hands, and sometimes I just want to say, get out, get your hands out. This is a really sacred and really beautiful moment. And for me, it really was. It was just me bringing up my baby, putting my baby there and holding her and just being with her. There was Talitha taking photos. No idea that she was doing that, but there weren't any interferences. It stayed really undisturbed and really sacred. And Matea's first moments in the world were soft and beautiful and peaceful, and it just exactly how I would have wished to enter the world myself. I wanted to offer that to her. No smack on the bum to start crying, no roughness, no tube down her throat, just really letting her calm and letting her transition to starting her life of breathing.
So those first imprints are hugely important, and I love the subtleness that you brought. It's the first time I see this like this, when you said the hands and the energy that you presented that as. It's another piece where even home birth, or organic environment, soft, but even that tiny little thing is actually huge. And the way you've mentioned it really shows that the impact of that, and how it can be, how we're rightfully meant to be born.
Yeah, it was a really beautiful way to share those first moments with her. We realized then too that it was quite cold outside, so we decided to go into the yurt. I forgot one tiny piece too. When I was falling asleep in the pool, Talitha, the photographer, she thought she's given birth 3 times before. She was thinking to herself, oh man, she's way off. Like, she's way off giving birth. I'm going to go and sleep in the yurt. So she went and lit the fire and she went to sleep. And about 10 minutes later, I was like, Betty, tell Talitha, the head's coming. Then she came back. That was perfect too, because when baby was born, we went straight into a really warm space. It was really perfect. So we took her in there and sat by the fire. And then we kind of realized that she wasn't breathing super well. She still sounded like she had a fluid in her lungs. So it's quite common for water birth babies to take a little while to transition into life. And breathing is a big deal when you've been under the water. You've only had fluid in your lungs for your whole life. So it does take, in my opinion, can take a long time to transition. She was still connected to the placenta, so she was still having all the blood and all the oxygen coming from there for a while, and then she was still breathing a little bit, but just we weren't quite sure. We felt like then we wanted to have some support, so we called the midwife, and she came, and by the time she arrived, she was breathing fine. But yeah, and there was our baby Martia.
Wow. I want to ask you, you've mentioned that a big part of your preparation journey was research, because it sounds like you've developed this huge trust in birth and in yourself and in the in your intuition and instinct. So what else would you say helped you to be in that state so that you can have this birth experience?
A big sense of trust in my body, a strong knowledge that women's bodies are meant to birth, that we've got like the capability of birthing. Combined with that, really, with the dream, the vision, that's how it was meant to be. That was just backing me up all the way, really. Even right from the beginning, when I was pregnant, I had this really strong feeling about Matia, about her soul, that she was just 100% meant to be here in the whole, full, healthy capacity that she is. So in a way, too, felt like no matter what I do, she's going to come through. Like that was really backing me up. So it's kind of, I guess this beautiful combination of a whole lot of research mixed in with trust, mixed with intuition, all sort of combined to make, plus creating the birthing environment that most aligned with me. So the most important requirements for a labouring woman is that they feel private, safe, and unobserved. Mm-hmm. So I created that environment for myself. So that was another part of the puzzle. All those things combined, I guess.
Wow, totally amazing birth experience. And sometimes women may have like one or two births before they are able to have this ultimate birth experience, but it sounds like this was your ultimate birth.
Sure. It was perfect. Best day of my life.
So if there was one thing that you would like to share with the women out there about, in order for them to own their birth experience and to experience the birth that is right for them and their baby, what would that be?
So I guess I would offer some ideas about doing some really deep self-work to discover what your deep fears are about birth and releasing them, transforming them into affirmations, getting them out of your head, getting away from the stories that you've been told and trying to come into alignment with your own truth. I would offer the idea of creating the birthing environment that aligns the most with you, that you can feel private, safe, and unobserved, those things together. Combined with making sure that you're working with the midwife or the care provider that suits you the best. You get to choose that. You get to choose who works with you. You get to choose who's at your birth. That's all your choices. And I guess that's it, really. You can choose. You really can choose. You choose whatever you want. You can choose it. You can research it. You can feel it out. You can see what your intuition says and come to the choice that's right for you. But know that you can choose. It's all up to you.
So important. Thank you so much for sharing this story with us and for the gift that you brought. And I hope many women will be inspired by this story.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me here and giving me the space to relive this amazing experience. It's beautiful. You can see me now. I'm still smiling. I can still connect in with the magic and power of that day.
Thank you so much for bringing us in that.
If you have enjoyed this show and you want to support the vision of seeing more women who own their births and unapologetically embody their full nature, please go to iTunes, subscribe, and leave me a review. I would also love it if you share this with your Instagram and Facebook followers, because this creates more opportunity for other people to find the show, and this way we hold this vision together as a community. If you like to join me for updates and inspiration, you can do that at my website, which is www.womenawakenings.com. Until next time.